Hey, everybody, what's going on? Welcome on into this edition of the Warchant Report powered by Cummins. Week 5 of the college football season, 4th game of the season for your 8th-ranked Florida State Seminoles. Thanks for being here. We do implore you to check out our good friends over at Cummins. Follow them on Instagram, CumminsLifestyle. It's all one word. See all the awesome projects you can accomplish, whether it's around your house or far, far away from home when you have portable power in your back pocket. You want quiet, reliable power that's portable, that you can go anywhere. The boat, the RV, I don't know, the football field as you tailgate to watch your son maybe go off for 7 for 142 and 2 scores this weekend, maybe. I don't know. Let's shoot for big goals. Cummins will help you, everybody. I'm joined by Tom Lang and a proud papa by the name of Jeff Cameron. They do the Jeff Cameron Show 1 to 4 o'clock. They'll be taking care of you throughout the week and also with a pregame show 3 p.m. on Friday as we get ready for a little bit of a odd week, right? You know, it's a road opener, conference opener. It's on a Friday night, but we're all getting through it together. Check out Jeff and Tom. They'll be getting you ready for it. Let's get you ready for the game then, nonetheless. Friday night, 7 p.m., Scott Stadium. Start off with you, Jeff Cameron. True or false? There's so many good vibes around this program right now. Yeah. People talking about, could this be the best offense in Florida State history? True or false? More of the good vibes seem to be coming from the last 2 games rather than the season opener, which is crazy to me.
False. No, I dismiss that entirely. It is the win over Alabama that everybody is still feeling the good vibes from and resonating. I think that was such an important game, Aslan. I mean, we all know the season Florida State had just come off of, and this idea of having to start over, and it was just looming and ominous, and then you had all the changes to the stadium and all the unknowns, entirely new offense and new coordinators and a new defense, and what was it going to look like, and could we compete, and the rosters weren't the same, and then Florida State dominates. Really, at that point, I think most Florida State fans realized, oh, wait, we're good. I don't know what Alabama is, but we're kind of good. And so the next 2 games were assumed, and we were right. We were all right that Florida State would win those games very easily. That just persisted. That just kept and maintained that good feeling that Florida State fans have about this team and how good it could be. But it was the Alabama game that was the match.
I know, but Tom, if Florida State beats East Texas A&M 44-17 and Kent State, 52-13. I don't know if people are talking about this team with such high expectations, but true or false in your opinion, or what's your pie chart, I guess, in terms of Florida State fans' optimism? How much of it is rooted in what they did against, no matter what you want to say, a very talented Alabama team versus them looking unstoppable against teams that just don't have a lot of options and answers for a team like Florida State?
So I understand where the question is going. I'm still going to say false. However, if you want to say the fuel in the gas tank was 3/4, 7/8, the Alabama game, I do think the last 2 games have topped off the tank. Makes sense? Because the sinister nature in which Florida State plays and wants to not only beat you, but drive you into the ground, I think is extremely satisfying for people to see, especially because they want revenge. This fan base wants revenge for 2-10 and what happened in December of 2023, and they see this nastiness that this Florida State team has on both sides of the ball that resembles something that happened 12 years ago here in 2013. So it leaves a very satisfying taste in one's mouth to see how Florida State handles those 2 games after Alabama. But the reason it's false, I think, is because even last year, in the midst of winning 2 games, you had an academic victory in that 12-game slate. When you couldn't beat anybody, you still beat the brakes off of one team on the schedule that was not in the same classification. So it still can happen without being a good football team. Alabama sets the table, puts most of the food on the table as well. But the dessert has been these last 2 games where they have a personality to them that resembles some teams that we really, really liked in yesteryear.
Yeah, I just feel like we need to remember that what they did to Alabama, I feel like so much of it's been what they've done the last 2 weeks. And I know it's been 3 weeks since that Alabama game, but just maybe reacquaint ourselves with what happened there because, Alabama smoked Louisiana Monroe the week after, but no one's talking about Alabama being one of the best teams ever because they lost the game that really mattered. So this game, though, arguably might matter more, Jeff, because it is a conference game. And if you want to get to where you want to go in terms of the playoff, it really helps you if you can just take care of business in your conference and win the whole darn thing. So as they head to take on a Virginia team that looks to be a bit of an upstart, has some weapons on offense, clearly, what part of this team have you seen these 3 games and the 4 weeks of hearing from the players and the coaches? What aspect of the team do you think will be able to travel well and translate well to what could be maybe a bit of a hostile crowd in Scott Stadium on Friday night?
Oh, I think the run game. I think that you're going to look at an offensive line who's established themselves very well so far this season. And I think that obviously with Tommy being a full go from a health standpoint, the math problem for defense is with his ability to tuck it and run changes the game. I think Florida State's got a stable running backs that are very, very good. You get Pittman back now. He brings a physicality to this game as well. A guy that, I thought was going to be kind of the bedrock for how they played the game offensively coming over from UCF. This is a rugged dude. You saw it in the Alabama game, the way he lit people up. I believe that travels. That's the one thing that I think if Florida State fans should be excited about. I think the passing game may have fits and stops and starts at times. They've looked great so far, no doubt. But I think there will be some teams that can maybe bottle that a little bit. I don't know about too many teams being able to stop this running game. And I think going on the road, that's one of the ways you establish yourself and take the crowd out of it. I think that travels in a game like this. And also having looked at Virginia's defense, I especially think Florida State should be able to run the ball against this football team.
It's been a few weeks, Tom, since we've seen them against a legitimate opponent that has maybe some answers to the test, but probably not enough of them to pull it off, I don't think. But we'll get to that in the third segment of this whole entire program that we do. What do you think you've seen from Florida State that you're confident is going to be able to show up and be kind of a difference maker and getting out of there with that victory that you need in conference?
This might be a little bit literal, but I think that communication on defense is the thing that's going to travel because it'll be quieter for them. This will be the first time they can actually probably hear each other's voices as they communicate before the snap. But that's going to be critical here because this offense does have enough playmakers that if you're in the wrong spot, you're going to get burned. We talked about this on the report last week as it pertained to Kent State's quarterback, who might be able to burn you for something if your eyes are in the wrong place. Well, lo and behold, there was a busted coverage and a bomb touchdown on a trick play. There's going to be more of that. Virginia likes to run trick plays. I know we'll get into what Virginia does a little bit more later. But communication-wise, if Florida State gets beat defensively on Friday night for a drive or a series, it won't be because they're in the wrong spot because the signal from the sideline came in incorrectly, or it was communicated poorly between the safeties and the corners, the linebackers, and the guys up front. It'll just be because they got beat by a superior play, a superior moment, or an athlete who had better leverage in a given moment. I think the defense is the thing to watch this week, but they should be lined up and ready to go. Tony White has also been preaching about how good this Virginia offense is since long before his Sunday press conference where he mentioned that to the media.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of that really good segue, Tom, that listening to the coordinators on Sunday, listening to Mike Norvell on Monday and Tuesday, like this team, Jeff, sounds very focused and realizes they've got they've got all their goals ahead of them. This is one of the big steps they need to get past to get onto the right track with all of this. But, there's always maybe the noise, the mechanism being jammed up a little bit. Like we've been asking Mike every day this week about Tommy. I feel like Tommy's going to be fine, man. Like we talked to Tommy after the game. We realized he limped off the field and didn't come back in, but he runs back out of the tunnel after halftime. Like I think he'll be fine, but is that a potential problem looming either short-term, long-term, or more of it possibly being for Florida State fans' worries? Is some of it more focused on Tony White and him emerging as a head coaching candidate for maybe somewhere as urgent or as big as his alma mater, UCLA? Which of those two factors you think is either more of a short-term or potential long-term distraction, or both of them nothing burgers in your mind?
I kind of think they're nothing. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I would be inclined to say that you're worried about Tony White going back to his alma mater, I suppose, but I don't think it affects the Florida State-Virginia game at all. And I don't think that it's one of the – I mean – look, Florida State fans are going to be nervous so long as they continue to have success because all of a sudden the spotlight is bright on your program and how did this turnaround happen? Who are the coaches responsible, et cetera? But that's what you wanted. That's what you had to have happen. Ultimately, it's a good thing if people are starting to whisper and talk about the coaches on your staff. We'll see what Florida State does with that situation down the line, but I don't think it affects this game. I think Tony has been able to establish with his players a certain way that they have to play in order to get on the field and a certain focus and intensity that they have to have. I don't think that wavers because there's some outside noise about the possibility of at some point down the line, Tony White interviewing for a head coaching job elsewhere. And as far as Tommy goes, we saw him run back out. He says he's fine. I'm going to trust that he's fine. I don't think there's any reason to believe that he's not fine. So I'm not worried about that at all. If they lose or play poorly or find themselves in a dogfight in the fourth quarter of a game here, it's because Virginia has played really well and maybe Florida State hasn't played as well, but I don't think it will be because of distractions.
Yeah, they're as healthy and whole as they're going to be probably all season, it feels like, Tom. But still, there's a sense of anxiety about, like, is Tommy really okay? Is the defensive coordinator absolutely laser focused on this game here? Do you think either of those are potential distractions that could hurt Florida State as urgent or as soon as Friday, or maybe linger on into the season?
I've got less worries about Tony White preparing his defense than I do that, hey, man, stop clicking on random links. If it was a random link that you didn't even know what it was taking you to, easy, buddy. It's your phone. Don't press the button. That's really easy.
Identity theft is no joke. It affects millions of people around the world.
That's right. Or you know what? If it's a UCLA alumni event, know that it might be recorded. Let's not hit that link. I'm going to worry about Tommy more, and it's not relative to the Kent State roll-up injury as much as it is every week I'm going to worry about Tommy. And Jimbo Fisher once said that more quarterback injuries, and he's right, happen in the pocket than they do when the quarterback gets out and runs. And lo and behold, where did Tommy come up lame against Kent State? That's going to be something that, until you get into a position where you're in control of the game, and even in the instance last week, you were in control of the game against Kent State, that Tommy, is he healthy thing, every time he takes off and clearly it's not a design run for him, get down is going to be the thing that I'm screaming in my head. Like, that is the immediate worry, because I'll tell you one thing I learned about last year and the year before is when times are good, embrace them. What could affect you more in the now? It would be Tommy's health more than I think Tony White's eyes for some other job down the line.
Again, so much optimism from the fan base. They see trends. They see things that might be repeating itself historically. 2013, this team went to take on a ACC foe from the DMV that came down to Tallahassee. A famous man once proclaimed it could be a problem. Can Virginia be a problem, or are they going to be a Maryland 2013 size problem? We'll try to figure that out and more next when we come right back here on the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins. A rebuild is in progress. Whether it's one of the top brands in college athletics or your adventurous spirit, we all need to recharge from time to time. So trust Cummins, the brand that's been a global power leader for over 100 years. Featuring the Onin line of portable power generators and power stations, tackle any project in your own climb to the top. Follow CumminsLifestyle on Instagram to see the latest builds from the Cummins team and to get inspiration for your next outing. And get your questions into the Renegade Express mailbag. Be the one that's generating discussion to earn entry into the December grand prize drawing for a portable generator or power station from Cummins. CumminsLifestyle on Instagram. Give it a follow. Welcome back. It's the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins. Give them a follow on Instagram. CumminsLifestyle, it's all one word. Give us a subscription follow if that's a thing. Warchant.com, only $1 still, everybody, for a week, and you get access to a full year membership to The Athletic. If you're a student, we can do even better than that. We can give you a free year membership without the dollar. No credit card required either. Just email us from your fsu.edu email address. Email support@warchant.com. Be like, I'm a student. Hook me up. We'll hook you up. Jeff Cameron and Tom Lane going to hook you up with Knowledge, 3 p.m. Friday for their pregame show. Put that on the calendar. All right, let's dive further into this matchup between Virginia and Florida State. Our own Matt LaSerre caught up with the folks over at Cavs Corner to give us a breakdown on what to expect from the Who's attack.
All right, everybody, we are back for another game week. Finally not a cupcake opponent for Florida State. They got Virginia, their first road test of the year this week. From Cavs Corner, we got Justin Ferber here on. To start off, we'll just go right into it with UVA at quarterback. Chandler Morris transferring in from University of North Texas. Was at TCU before, was supposed to be that starter for that team that got to the national championship. How has he been for Virginia so far?
Excellent, really. Yeah, I mean, he's been everything that they've hoped he would be so far, I would say. He's been really in command of the offense. He hasn't really misplaced a lot of balls. He had one really unfortunate interception at the end of the NC State game, but obviously he also put them in a position to win that game potentially down the stretch with some big throws. But other than that, he's been very good. I mean, Saturday night against Stanford, he was excellent and hit a lot of deep balls, some explosive plays. He's been able to get loose running the ball a little bit here and there. But yeah, I mean, and he's an older guy, so he's been really in control of everything that they've asked him to do. So
yeah, what kind of weapons are we looking at? I've seen the rushing attack's really good, and the receivers look to be solid. Who do we need to watch out for when it comes to who he going to throw it to and who's going to hand the ball to.
This year, they probably have 4 or more good, pass catchers. If you include the running backs, even more than that. So, Trell Harris is coming off a huge game at receiver for UVA at 3 touchdowns against Stanford. He's been really good. Jamal Edrin's a bigger guy, a red zone threat at receiver, and then Cam Ross is like a slot guy that they got from JMU out of the portal, and he had a really big opener against Coastal Carolina and had a nice game on Saturday as well against Stanford. And in the backfield, they have a few different guys that they've been sort of rotating in and out. Jamari Taylor is the primary back, had 3 touchdowns against NC State. He's been really good. He can catch the ball out of the backfield as well, but he's been a really solid addition. He had a nice game on Saturday. And then Harrison Way-Lee is more of a physical guy, came from Wyoming, had a 97-yard touchdown against William and Mary a couple weeks ago. He's been a good complimentary back. And then they bring back Xavier Brown, who was their number 2 back last year, and he's probably the most dynamic of the 3. He's been a good complimentary back in previous years, but he can stretch the field, have some long runs, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield as well. But
then to turn it over to the defense, again, been a pretty solid group so far this year. Let's start with the defensive front. Kind of what are we looking at there?
Yeah, I mean, this is another area where they really made a point to go out in the portal and try to add some talent depth to that group. They have a pretty experienced group at defensive tackle. They rotate those guys in and out a lot, with Jameer Carter being the most experienced. And then Jacob Holmes and Jason Hammond and some of these other guys, they can come in, especially in pass rush situations, and make some hay, from the center of the line. And then the defensive end group, they've been trying to get more out of. Again, like they struggled with giving up sacks last year, and they also struggled creating them, which is a bad combination. But this year they've done a little better. They haven't created quite as much havoc as they probably would have liked to, but they've had some good moments. They had 5 sacks on Saturday against Stanford. They rotate a lot of guys in there, a bunch of transfers. Daniel Rickert is one of the standouts. He had 2 sacks the other night. He's an FCS transfer. And they get Mekhi Buchanan back, who is a guy who was a potential starter, or at least a rotational guy. He missed the first few games, but did play a little bit against Stanford, so he should be back for this one. And they have a few other guys that rotate in and out as well. But obviously, this will be a little bit of a different challenge for them going against Castellanos, who's a much more mobile quarterback than what they've seen in the last few weeks.
Yeah, and then just what else about the defense should we know? The secondary, linebackers, who else is there to watch?
Yeah, so Cam Robinson's the best player on the defense at linebacker. He broke his collarbone in camp and missed the first 3 games of the season, but did return on Saturday against Stanford. Led the team in tackles and recovered a fumble. He's a dynamic player. Florida State fans may remember him because they kind of got involved in his recruitment at the very end there back 3 years ago. But he's a potential future NFL player at linebacker, and the kind of guy that can make a difference in a game like this. The secondary is basically completely different than it was a year ago. They brought in a ton of transfers. Devin Neal from Louisville is probably the best of the gets, at safety. And then Donovan Platt from Army, he's been pretty solid. And then Emmanuel Carnley, who was a good player, who actually transferred from Arizona to Miami in the spring and then to UVA after the spring. He's been pretty good as well. An interesting group. I think they've been pretty good at times, but then they've also had lapses, where they just have a coverage bust and they give up some big plays, and that kind of hurt them against Stanford.
Awesome, and thank you again, Justin, for giving us that overlook of the UVA depth chart. Again, that was Justin Ferber from Cavs Corner. It's part of our On3 network, so if you want to go find out more about Virginia and learn more about them going into this game, you should already have full access with a warchant.com account. You can't comment on the message boards, but you can go see what the UVA fans are saying about Florida State as well. So have a good one, and again, thank you, Justin.
Thanks to Matt and the folks over at Cavs Corner for joining us and helping us out with that report. We used to do keys to victory and things like that, Tom, but let's just go ahead and kind of do a matchup analysis, and let's just look at one side versus the other. And let's start off with this Florida State offense that's been just the big play, has been such a huge part of what they've done, and hoping to see that kind of continue. How does the matchup work out in your mind between Florida State's offense and what Virginia's defense is going to try to limit them or try to accomplish?
if you're looking for a Florida State blowout, the path is with Florida State's offense on the field against Virginia's defense. I will tell you that the reports are good from what I've seen so far. They played NC State early in the season. NC State, if you take out the kneel downs at the end of the game, over 30 carries. They averaged 6.7 yards per carry. They did whatever they wanted. C.J. Bailey was able to do whatever he wanted. This is a group that has a couple of players that are talented, but they kind of have to guess to be in the right place and make effective plays in the backfield through 4 games. I'm sure there's going to be different wrinkles that are schemed up for Florida State that were not there prior, because this is for them, much like what Miami is going to be next week for Florida State. They're going to pull out all the stops. But what I see consistently with Virginia Tech is Virginia the Cavaliers is a lot of off coverage. They are scared of their lack of speed in the secondary, and yet they're still beat over the top. That was something that happened in the NC State game. That was something that happened last week against Stanford. Stanford's first touchdown is a bomb over the top. Their last touchdown, again, is a shot over the top where Virginia didn't have the speed to keep up with the athletes on the outside. So I do think there's some opportunities here for Florida State's passing game against a slow Virginia secondary. I do want to see, though, do they play it more aggressively to try and stop the run? Because then they're putting Tommy in a position where he can start the game much like he did against Kent State with vertical shots. This is a Deuce Robinson game, I think, one way or the other, because if they're going to play off, you just break off your route underneath, and you can rack up a lot of easy catches that way. I do want to see how Florida State's rushing attack does. We expect that to be consistent week in and week out. They're going to have to guess right on their angles at times at Virginia. I feel very good about Florida State. As long as the weather cooperates and there's no kind of craziness with injuries, I feel very good about Florida State's offense producing this Friday night.
Jeff, Virginia's best defense is probably going to be their offense staying on the field. It just feels like, again, like the last 2 weeks, you're going against teams that are getting rid of the ball in 1.1 second because they know they can't get open downfield or hold up in blocking. But what is Virginia's offense? Is it a competent outfit? I mean, what sort of challenges do you think Virginia presents, and what can they do in terms of trying to limit Florida State's possessions if they're successful on their side of the ball?
Yeah, I think they have to stay on the field because of the reasons Tom just laid bare. I think it's a nightmare for Virginia, the more at-bats that the Florida State offense gets in this game. So I think for Virginia, you want to stay on the field, and you can do that when you have a mobile quarterback who's 24 years old. He's been everywhere, obviously. We know he was at TCU. We know he's at Oklahoma. He was at North Texas. Now here he is at Virginia. Chandler Morris is experienced. He's athletic. He's talented, and he can convert on third down. If they have a chance, they have a veteran offensive line. They're multiple pro-style offense. They've got guys that can make a play. We all know Trell Harris, but they've got some guys that can put them in 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3 situations, and then they need the quarterback to make plays. And he's capable of making plays. You could see a scenario by which Florida State has an opportunity to get off the field, and then the quarterback, using his savvy, using his experience, using some of the skill players that he has, they convert, and then you get frustrated, and time becomes of the essence, and all of a sudden it becomes a lower possession game. I think that's the avenue by which Virginia has to attack Florida State. Might be easier said than done, but again, when you have a veteran offensive line and a veteran quarterback, and you have enough weapons to sprinkle it throughout the game and kind of keep you off track, especially with the quarterback legs, then all of a sudden you have a situation where you can grow a little frustrated. So hopefully Florida State can dominate the point of attack. So far this year, Florida State has dominated with the physicality, with the point of attack, and put teams behind the chains for the most part. But again, 2 of those opponents were completely outmatched. They did do it to Alabama, though, as well. So you hold on to your hat, you go up to Charlottesville, and you try to win first down big time, and then you hope like heck that this kid doesn't have the day of his life scrambling on 2nd and 3rd and long.
Tom, I feel like if Florida State fans had to devise a roulette wheel for the fortunes of this game, the black and red would represent either Florida State wins big or they win close. I don't think there's a lot of people that think Florida State could possibly lose this game in a big margin, which I don't either. So let me ask you, if this is a close game, why will it be that way? And if it's not going to be a close game and Florida State runs away with it, what will be the reasons for that?
So I think they're related. It would be red zone efficiency for the offense. It would be the turnover battle, and it would be special teams plays by both sides that add up to a negative for Florida State and a positive for Virginia. That's how they keep it close. I think the time of possession's key. Jeff was just talking about that. Keep the possessions down. But they've got a dynamic returner, does Virginia, both the punt and the kick return game. And then if they're keeping it short to these few possessions, and you just make a couple of mistakes where you're kicking field goals instead of scoring touchdowns, that's where this can feel like an NFL game all of a sudden, where you don't have the amount of possessions that you feel like you should, and you can't dictate the flow of the game from in front. So I think, however, if Florida State does what they're supposed to do on offense, and then also they present something defensively to Virginia that Virginia hasn't seen a lot before, I will tell you, in watching the NC State game and the Stanford game, you don't really learn too much from the other two. There's a lot of man coverage that Virginia is exposed to, and the quarterback makes very simple reads against the man coverage defenses that are way slower, and they've got good playmakers. There's going to be a lot more multiplicity here for Florida State. So let's say that Florida State generates an early interception. You could be up 2 scores, and you're off and running at that point because you force Virginia to be one-dimensional. I don't think Virginia's offense has been tested by what Florida State's defense is going to bring to the table, not by a long shot before this game. So it all comes down to those situations and turnovers. That's how that weird weeknight energy begins on the road for Florida State.
Jeff, Tom Lang is changing the calculus in my head for when I have to make a score prediction here now. But let me ask you, why will it be close? Why won't it be close?
Well, I actually don't think it's going to be close. And so I'm tipping my hand here when we're about to do predictions. But it would be close because of a veteran quarterback. It would be close because Chandler Morris makes plays. And, when guys keep plays alive, you don't have to do things on script. You don't have to necessarily be as buttoned up and methodical. Guys just make plays. Crowd gets into it. You don't respond well to being challenged really for the first time. It would be the first time they would be challenged away from home. And then maybe you start to see a little rat trapping. But I have a hard time getting there with this group, who I do think is very focused, very buttoned up, very organized. And Tom brought it up earlier in the show, but the communication's been awesome. I don't foresee that happening. But, we do know that veteran mobile quarterbacks change games or are capable of changing games. And I would put it around that kid's shoulders and say, hey, you got to go win the game for us if I'm Virginia. He's seen all kinds of things. He's won, Big 12 Player of the Week. He's had moments where he's had these big-time games where they had to have it. So I think that's the way it's close, is if he plays lights out.
One thing left to do. The last part's the best part, right? It's prediction time. That's coming up next, right after this, here on the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins. Coming soon. On the field, a resurgent Florida State football team, we all hope. And off the field, the Cummins own and QG 7000i DF. The DF standing for dual fuel. That's right, a generator that can run on gasoline or liquid propane. Available later this year, the own and QG 7000i is a great fit for your Class A or fifth wheel RV. In addition to the versatility of dual fuel sources, the QG 7000i delivers world-class engineering from Cummins that results in low vibration, clean exhaust, and electric fuel injection for better efficiency and less maintenance. Follow CumminsLifestyle on Instagram for more information and be the first to know when the QG 7000i drops. Cummins, a world power leader. Welcome back in. Final segment of this week's edition of the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins. Again, check them out over on Instagram. CumminsLifestyle. It's all one word. Man, when you got portable, reliable, quiet power in your corner, makes everything in the great outdoors that much better. They even have some house backup generator options too. Check that out as well. CumminsLifestyle, all one word, over on Instagram. Noles behind the operation supporting the program. So give it a follow, everybody. Again, a reminder, there will be a pregame show Friday, 3 p.m. with Jeff Cameron and Tom Lang getting you ready for the ACC opener for the Florida State Seminoles and UVA. That game against NC State was not a conference game, and I don't know either, everybody. I do not know either. Post-game show will be starting 10 to 15 minutes afterwards with Gene Williams and Tom Lang. Check that out here on Warchant TV as well. Before we make our picks, we work with a whole bunch of other smart people over at warchant.com. Let's have them make their predictions for this upcoming game and start off with Gene Williams.
Florida State, Virginia, Friday night. Thanks a lot, ACC. Currently, I'm a little surprised. Florida State's only a 7 to a 7.5 point favorite in this game, but Virginia does bring quite the offense. They are the number 5 ranked offense compared to FSU's number 1 right now, according to the NCAA. So expecting a shootout with a 58-point total in this game. Look, Virginia does have a pretty good offense. Chandler Morris, the quarterback, is putting up some really big numbers right now. But I like the fact FSU's going into this game very healthy on both sides of the ball. So give me the Noles. Going to cover that spread, 38-24.
What's up, sports fans? It's your old friend Corey Clark here in his bedroom. How exciting for you guys. Giving you my pick for this week on my way to Charlottesville, where I'll be on Friday night to watch Florida State play Virginia. Look, I just worry about this game, I think more than anything, because of what the next week will mean if they can get there. And so it would just be so awesome for this program and for the sport if Florida State and Miami are both undefeated when that game is played. I do think that's going to happen. I don't think it'll be easy on Friday night. I'm looking at like a 34-24 score, Florida State winning, where it's probably, the way I envision it going, it's 27-24 late in the fourth quarter. Florida State is driving to put the game away. It's like 3rd and 8 on Virginia's 22, where a field goal doesn't do much for you. It gets you up 6, but it doesn't win the game. And maybe Castellanos or Sawchuk breaks off a 20-yard run into the end zone to ice it, 22-yard run, I guess, and you win 34-24. That's what I'm looking for. It'll be a close game. It'll be an entertaining game, but I do think that Florida State pulls it out in the end. Peace and love.
It's not the biggest game of the season for Florida State, but it's the biggest game of September, and it's finally here, the Virginia game, which I think a lot of us have been looking forward to since Florida State's big win against Alabama, the season opener. It's kind of another chance to kind of prove what this team is really all about. Florida State's not a huge favorite in this game. It's their first road game of the season. Virginia's been improved at 3-1. I still like the Noles to win this game pretty comfortably. I think there's going to be some sketchy moments early. Again, first road game of the year. Virginia's going to be jacked up. It's the 30th anniversary of the 95 win and all those other things that are in the background. But I think Florida State's going to win this game pretty comfortably. I like the Noles to win 38-21. I wouldn't be surprised early in the second quarter if there's a little game pressure on Florida State, if Virginia maybe hits a big play early, and then maybe Florida State just something doesn't go as well as it's gone so far offensively. But I do think the Noles are the superior team, and they'll flex that muscle as the game goes on and prove to 4-0 on the season and set up this huge top 10, maybe top 6, top 7 matchup against the Miami Hurricanes next week at Doak Camp.
I think FSU's rushing attack is going to be too much for UVA. That stat of how they weren't able to stop the run against North Carolina, I think, tells us, North Carolina State. It's going to tell a story of how this one's going to go. I think Gavin Sawchuk, Jalen Lucas, Usman Chroma are going to be able to kind of run up all over this team. And Thomas Castellanos as well. I think he's expected to be healthy. Maybe you won't see him run as much. Ankle, maybe not fully 100%, but it's going to be close to it. With that, I think this defense is going to step up as well against a high-powered offense. I think 35-21 is a good score here for the Noles.
Thanks to those gentlemen for their predictions. Can we make it a clean sweep on our panel? We start off now then. Tom Lang, 7 p.m., ESPN, number 8, Florida State, walking into a little bit of a house of horrors, maybe, Scott Stadium. 2019, not kind. 2005, not kind to Florida State. And obviously 1995, they're bringing back those unis, trying to play head games with the Noles. Don't appreciate it. How do you see this one shaking out, Tom?
I think Florida State's going to score a lot. The question is how many touchdowns versus how many field goals, and that's where I'm going to go here. This is going to keep it a little bit closer. I think they score 7 times in this game, fellas. I think they do, but they kick 3 field goals. So if my math is correct, that puts Florida State at 37 points to keep the game close-ish. Virginia's got a good offense, and they've got a chance for some of their guys to make some plays in space, and I think they will. I think that quarterback obviously is very good as well in Morris. So I think Florida State wins the ball game 37-21, but we are impressed by what we see. The number in Vegas is 7.5. I think we'll watch that game and go back and say, man, that could have been and should have been maybe mid-20s to a 30-point blowout by Florida State. But I'm going to say that Florida State, which has been waiting for this moment too, we're worried about a trap game looking ahead to Miami. Florida State's been prepping for Virginia for a couple of weeks because of the bye week and their opponents. I think they're ready to go and buttoned up. Just situationally, they need to clean things up a little bit.
What do you think, Jeff? Is this going to be another brick in the house that fans are building? Talking about this could be the best FSU team ever, maybe the best offense ever. Are they going to show that on the field in their first conference game of the season?
I don't know about the best Florida State team ever. I've seen some really good Florida State teams. We got to slow our roll with all this. Let's just be the really, really good version of this year's Florida State team, because I think you can win the conference and go to the college football playoff and see what happens. But listen, I like Florida State here. I think the better athletes, and I think they're the better team across the board. And I do think the physicality will play on the road. They've been that way defensively this year. They've flown to the ball against lesser teams as well as good teams like Alabama. And I think they'll do that here. I do think, as Tom pointed out, we brought up up some stats earlier. Chandler Morris is a good football player, quarterback there. But I think it's close for a little while. We're all kind of a little nervous because we're not used to that. It's been a few weeks since the Alabama game. Florida State pulls away with the superior players, 38-17. Tom, when you were giving your prediction, I was starting to get a little bothered that we were going to be that close. But a little 38-17 action for Florida State. You know, might be one of those situations where it's 17-14 or 17-all. We're like, what's going on here? Florida State gets comfortable, begins to separate, dominates in the back end.
Let me nudge my way in between you guys on these predictions. I'm going to go with 38-24. It was in my mind like 10 minutes ago. I was going to maybe go like 31-21, but then Tom gave me some of that information that I did not know and affected my pick. So I'm going to go with that score. So we're all pretty close. We'll see who's the closest, and doesn't really matter as long as Florida State keeps winning. And then the week after the Miami game, which I've heard on Warchant.com that it's come down from high, that it already has been issued as a Cat 5 maintained game.
It was too easy. It was too easy, guys. I mean, heck, I didn't need to see the 7:30, but the second they did 7:30, we had to make the announcement. I mean, that's there are people who need to slow down their drinking right here, right now, today. In anticipation for the Florida State-Miami game. I ran into a guy the other day in Publix who asked me about the Miami game. Well, we play Virginia this Friday. He's like, no. But the Miami game. I was like, buddy, I mean, come on, let's worry about the Virginia game. People are already starting their tailgate for the Florida State-Miami game, and it's hard to blame them. But let's take care of Virginia first.
Absolutely. You can check out Jeff Cameron and Tom Lang on the Jeff Cameron Show, 1 to 4 p.m., Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Tuesdays, Seminole Headlines Day. They'll be doing the pregame show for you folks as well on Friday at 3 p.m. Check that out. And then Tom Lang and Gene Williams doing the postgame show 10 to 15 minutes after that game goes final. And we'll also have the Warchant report, or rather the Warchant wrap, presented by our great friends over at Vitamin Energy with Irish O'Fell and Corey Clark. They'll both be boots on the ground in Charlottesville, Virginia, because that's how we roll. Who else covers your favorite team the way Warchant.com does? Nobody. Come give us a try. $1 for a week, and you get a year subscription to The Athletic. Pretty sure you'll like it. He's Tom. It's Jeff. I don't even know if I pointed to the right guys. It's mirrored. It's all weird. But I'm Aslan. Thanks for watching. Hit the thumbs up on the way out. And thanks for supporting the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins.